WCEG Network. We are the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Watch us live on your smart TV, on Roku, cable channel, YouTube, Facebook, Lincoln, and now on Fanbase, Blue Sky, and Twitch. I'm Ernestine Pittman, host of Standing Voting Power for the next hour. Please listen now. The topics and opinions are those of the show, hosts and guests, and not WCEG Media Enterprise. I am so happy to have you joining us today. Today is my 58th marriage anniversary. I am happy about that and even more thankful and blessed to be able to speak with you thanks to WCEG, truly a community-based organization who wants to help all those who have a voice and speak it. My topic today is supposed to be voting power, but I had an event to occur that changed that. Not the voting power, but the reason behind voting power. People, it is of the utmost importance that you vote like an informed person who not only cares about himself or herself, but others and everybody too. When you vote, your vote speaks loudly. It says, this is what you want, or this is not what you want. And it is not enough for one person to go to the polls. You need to take someone with you. There is power in numbers. There is power in voting because your vote determines who is going to govern you on the local, state, and national level. We know we don't have anything worthwhile at the top, and we low to middling with the middle. Locally, many local governments are failing the residents, and the residents are failing the local government. It's not enough to go to the polls and vote. You have to show up, be heard, advocate, promote, support. And that is what I'm going to talk to you about today. The people that you vote to govern you should not disappear from the scene when their term is up. After all, they did tell you, I love this city and I love and care about you. If that's only going to last 4 years, you're in for a big surprise. And it should not come at that. Come to that. Why are you voting for the people on your ballot? Here in East Point, it is not written on the ballot, but every homeowner in East Point whose house was built between 1950 and 1960, you could possibly be sitting on a storm water mine. I was at council meeting Monday night, and I got the shock of my life when only 3 council members voted in the affirmative for the motion on the floor that would have the city to go on the private property of a homeowner who's had a sinkhole in his yard since December 2024, and it is expanding. The city says you're going to have to pay 2/3, and we're going to you're going to pay 1/3, and we're going to pay 2/3. That is not what you pay that stormwater fee month yearly. Now let's take a little trip back down memory lane and see how we got to where we've gotten. Some of you may think, that previous administrations didn't do anything. Others know better. From 2000 up until 2013, we had 3 mayors. Mayor Patsy Jo Hildy had an extremely good administration when it came to working and planning for the future. The East Point is a porous city. We have water everywhere. A little trickle here, a little trickle there that has turned into a ditch. Now it's turning into a creek. Leaves are falling in it, branches, trash, garbage coming downstream, rains, it floods. And then the water begins to settle. And did you know that when homes were built in East Point in the 50s and 60s, stormwater pipes were laid on the land by the contractor? These pipes were never hooked up to the city stormwater system. Therefore, they're not dedicated. And yes, the city is not responsible for stormwater problems that those pipes caused. Well, that was true until the late Mayor Joe Macon administration came about. 2 whole years. 2 whole years. Often to 1, 2:30 in the morning on work session night, we had an attorney who was also an engineer to come out and help us get together a plan, legislation that would make it impossible for any homeowner to lose his or her home because of stormwater, whether it originated on their property or came onto their property. They would not be hit with such a high, horrendous bill that comes with trying to correct the stormwater runoff problem. We had people already telling us these pipes, I did not know this pipe was on my land. They did not know. It was not written anywhere in the document. And the city did not know. And the city still does not know how many homes and where they are. But the city does know, and I said city, I mean local governments, does know that there is a home here at East Point that has this problem. Now I'm going to read this statement here, and then I will tell you why it blew my mind. Storm Line Sinkhole Evaluation Summary. This is called the Storm Line Sinkhole Evaluation Summary. After an evaluation of the sinkhole located at, I'm not going to give the address, it has been determined that this is a private matter and is the responsibility of the property owner to address. The sinkhole is centered on a storm line that was previously unknown to the city of East Point and is beyond its area of responsibility. The storm line likely fell due to a combination of age and tree root damage. Word up. We knew that back there when the late Farmer Joe Macon was mayor. And the 2 years that we spent, we discussed that. And the engineer, who was also our attorney, working with us to make sure we were not doing anything that would violate any environmental or state laws when we put the legislation together. We called and considered this legislation homeowners stormwater insurance policy. Well, we knew it wasn't enough to tell the homeowner this legislation will make the city pay for everything that's on your property that's caused by stormwater that you did not cause or made worse. We needed preventive action, preventive measures in place. So we included all the numerous little creeks and tributaries and waterways. Those had to be cleaned out and maintained throughout the entire city because the entire city would be affected by whatever happened in those little creeks and tributaries throughout the years ongoing. We added that once the city would clean those one time, after it was cleaned and noted with the city, the current homeowner, would have to keep it up. Well, 11 years later, over 11 years later, 16 years later, the creeks are not clean. The tributaries are now ditches. We have water run off flood when yards and all when it rains. We have storm drains flooding because they're stopped up. We also took in consideration, well, what if some new growth subdivision is built on the property behind me or next to me, and I don't have these pipes and all in the yards? I don't have a stormwater problem. I don't live near a little tributary creek. Well, you can have a law on the book that says when you're building, you have to make sure that the contours of the land that you are changing, the root system by the trees removal, is not going to cause stormwater runoff. That's not always true. But when you have an insurance policy, you want to make sure it covers as many things that can happen, whether they happen or not, if you're going to pay a premium by way of a fee. So after writing the legislation together, we made sure as a council, sitting there, 9 people voted unanimously. I couldn't vote, so 8. I didn't vote. I didn't try to veto it, so I consider my vote would have been a positive one. So because I did not try to veto, and I remember saying before we voted on this to accept this legislation that we need to have in there a clause where no employee of the city could ever tell a homeowner no. Absolutely not. So if the homeowner called in and said, I have a stormwater problem, I need help, the city would then send out the stormwater engineer who is paid for by the stormwater utility. This engineer job is to go out, evaluate the problem, come up with a solution to fixing the problem with the estimated cost. Now, we didn't state in there that the city had to go on and fix the problem and then later decide if it's that they want to charge the resident for anything. Because in doing the evaluation, if they could show that the problem was caused by the homeowner, then the homeowner would have to pay some kind of pro rata share of the cost, or that he or she made the problem worse the same. Now the city could then say, look, Mr. Homeowner, you have a stormwater problem. The city is going to fix it, but you made the problem worse when you did A, B, and C. And we're going to assess you $3,000. Well, the homeowner says, I can't pay. I don't have it. And I don't see why I should be paying $3,000 in the first place. I have insurance. Well, now let's go back to this insurance. Now we're telling residents, Anything that happens on your property that is caused by stormwater, the city is going to fix it. Well, at the time, the city did not have a stormwater utility. The city had a stormwater management system in the Public Works Department, paid for and operated out of general funds. It took us 2 years to come up with the plan on how we were going to pay and support the stormwater utility fee that would ensure that the city had the money to cover the costs of fixing the problems on residential property. That came out to be a stormwater utility fee. Every impervious surface in the city would be taxed on every tract of land in the city, except where there was a detention pond or grass area. Your roof line and the roof line of any other structure on your property that kept water from coming from the sky, going directly into the ground, was going to be taxed with a fee, stormwater utility fee. Your driveway, your circular additions and all, that too was counted in. So this was a citywide problem. People should not be put in the situation of losing their homes to stormwater because they cannot pay the cost of having the work done to fix the problem, no matter what it costs. And nor should they have to try to go in such debt that they may as well walk away and leave the property, thus causing blight in our neighborhoods. If the property is blighted, you lose property values in your neighborhood. It only takes two houses within a mile or so of each other to change the concept of what kind of neighborhood physically that is when that property is sitting there blighted. More than that, you have a person's dream. You have a person's desire. You have the person found what the foundation of this country is based on ownership, property ownership. It is the hardest thing, or used to be, to take a person's property away from he or she. So we here in East Point said, okay, well, you can appeal because the city has rights too. If the city wants to say, okay, you're going to pay and go on and fix the problem. If you don't have the money, they need to go on and fix it, not so as to not make it worse. Because push comes to shove, they can always put a lien on the property for any work, showing that they legally did it and they are legally owed. But we did not leave that decision up to the city because the city, you did not elect a manager, a city manager, a finance director, or anybody in the public works department to represent you. They supply services for you. So what do you do? Well, we've said, come before the council. Well, the councilman said, no, we don't want to hear any hearings. No. We don't want to have any hearings coming to us. We want we have hearings set up like they do on the Civil Service Board. So we created the Administrative Appeals Board. That when this homeowner is told that he or she is assessed part of the cost, then they could take that, go ask for a hearing before the appeals board composed of 9 residents appointed by the mayor and 8 council members to make a recommendation to the council based on what they learned in the hearing from the city saying why a cost is needed and how much, and a resident saying how what the cost is and shouldn't pay. And it's not always that the city is right or a resident is wrong. Comes a time when the city can be right. That unknowingly, the homeowner could have done something wrong. Unfortunately, that homeowner does not have the money. So we are not going to allow the city to not fix the problem because the homeowner doesn't have the money. Then, if that situation comes up, then what? Well, that comes out in the discussion with the recommendations among the 9 people on the Administrative Appeals Board. Their recommendation to the council could be no cost to the resident, some cost to the resident, or the city pays all. Taking in consideration now with some evidence that if a citizen pays all, the homeowner pays all, he or she simply does not have the money. Then are we going to go and put a lien on the property? That's the next thing that we have to take into consideration. That can be one of the recommendations by the members. I mean, from the council, from the appeals board to the council. Well, when the council gets their recommendation, the mayor and council will then determine what they will do, and that is when it is final in the city. That decision is made by mayor and council. If there's any dispute between the city and the homeowner about the cost of the work being done, that final decision lies with the council. Well, now here we are. I signed off on the cost when I was mayor that completed the stormwater utility. We had the ordinance creating the utility, stating how it would operate and what have you. But we did not have a fee to fund it, so it could not go into operation. Once we decided on how we were going to fund it by having a yearly fee paid with your property taxes based on the amount of impervious surface you had on your property. And it's not really high. We have yet to have residents opposed to it. And that says something. Because the residents was told over 2 administrations, if you have stormwater problems on your property, the city is going to fix it. Well, in the ordinance, we stated every waterway in the city belongs to the city. All stormwater problems on private property also belong to the city. And at the time that we established the stormwater utility, there was a split of how much money from the stormwater utility that the general would go to the general fund, because they still had to clean those storm drains with the city, because if those storm drains became clogged up or backed up, property would be damaged. But that was a city problem. We did not take on the entire problem because we never knew at any time how many homes or what kind of flood problems that would cause by stormwater would impact how many residents. Not knowing the cost and all what have you, we did not set aside an objective means of how much a resident would be asked to pay at any time. Only that would come up based on a recommendation by the boards that would go to the city council, who would then ultimately make that decision. I have you know that That ordinance that we passed as insurance for residents maintaining their home free of stormwater problems and fixed if they occur by paying a stormwater utility fee. It's probably only 2% in the homes of East Point that would really be affected by that. But because of the way our city and our residential areas are laid out, it would affect the city in a negative way. Not only that, we have legacy homeowners who moved here in the 50s and the 60s. These homes are not cheap now. They were not cheap then. The people have aged. They are retired. They're on pensions, Social Security, maybe children coming back to stay with them or what have you. We talked about that. This stormwater utility was discussed and created to, at the same time, while taking care of the humane concerns, the city's ability to pay, fairness to the residents in this city to pay for it. And that's the stormwater fee. When this 80 plus year old veteran called me up and said, Mayor Pittman, you know, when we were protesting that ordinance about stormwater, I said, yes, you were out there. And I've gotten 2 citations, really 3 citations for protesting against this ordinance because you know what happened to the ordinance that we discussed and passed. Well, the city decided, not the council, the city decided they wanted to merge in the stormwater management system that already existed in the city. And by the way, there are only 2 cities in the state of Georgia that has a stormwater utility. That's Griffin and East Point. Because we are so porous, and they are too, but then they're so small, their public workers automatically would be doing the work. In East Point, any stormwater work that's done by a public work employee, that person's salary for the portion of the time and all is paid for out of the stormwater utility fee. The stormwater utility has an allocation budget in the allocation in the budget. Stormwater management no longer exists because it became the stormwater utility. That was never supposed to happen, and it still has not happened because that has never come before the council. When I was looking at that ordinance, and those of you who want to see it, I highlighted it 4 years ago. I got three citations. The city allowed one to end due to a statute of limitations. The other 2 disappeared after I went to hired an attorney, and she filed a suit for the city against the city for lack of prosecution because they had no case. Well, those 2 disappeared. And what was I protesting? This gentleman that's 80 now did not have a stormwater problem then that he knew about. We were protesting that ordinance as it is written now, but it is not what we spent 2 administrations working on. If you remember when I started out, the very premise for the stormwater utility was to protect home ownership, residential property from loss due to stormwater. And to pay for it, we charged a fee on every tract of land in the city of East Point to pay for it. In order for those homeowners to know and feel safe in their homes, knowing if something happened from stormwater, I don't have to move. I don't have to go and try to take out a loan at my age with my finances what they are in order to fix the problem. This homeowner was asked to pay $3,000 of the $9,000 that was posed by the city. Stormwater management. To this day, he has yet to be able to make an appeal before the Administrative Appeals Board because it does not exist. The council has never gotten around to setting it up. 11 years the city of East Point has been collecting at least $2.2 million for the stormwater utility. Where is the almost $25 million collected over those 11 years? There have been residents who have been told, on your property, it's your problem. Why in the hell do they think we started a stormwater utility? It wasn't something that existed in Fulton County. It wasn't anything that existed in any county in Georgia. And it still is something that does not exist in any county in Georgia except Griffin, and I think Griffin is in Spalding County, and East Point, that's in Fulton County. Those two. Why? Because we made the decision that people, homes mattered. Home ownership is sacred. And you should not lose your home because when it was built 50 40 years ago, right now that would make it 50, 60 years ago, pipes were laid that the city did not know about. When you purchased a home 20, 30 years later, you did not know about it. But there's a problem. They started aging. Tree roots got around them. Now, they're no longer doing the job for which they were put in to do. But you've been paying a stormwater fee for 11 years. You paid your insurance premium. Now, the insurance company, the city of East Point, ought to do right by you. But you can't even have a hearing because the council has never set up the Administrative Appeals Board. If you go and try to sue in court, the ordinance says you can only go to, you have to wait until the appeals before you go to Superior Court because you would not have used all the means that your city ought to have in place to satisfy you and rectify your problem. So here you sit, 12 months coming up since December 2024, when you came before the council, before the city. I have gone to 2 council meetings where we stood side by side. Then I've gone to council meetings where you sat and I stood. Yes, I'm upset because for the second time in the history of this city, that during a period of my administration as mayor, a city manager, a finance director, and someone in a department decided that my name was good enough to put on an ordinance to increase electrical rates without that ordinance ever going to the council for a discussion. The 2 public hearings required for whenever there's a fee charged to the residents never took place. Employee decided employees or employee had to be the city manager, finance director. They should have known that East Point residents could afford to increase the electric utility budget by $5 million a year in reserves for the city to do what it wanted to do, and the residents not know it. And they set my name. Now, how did that happen? Well, during a class action lawsuit, judge found that during discovery, this document, I never signed it. It never went before council. I had been telling them before. That didn't happen. And judge stated, this document never went before the council. The city has not provided any minutes in an oral or visual form stating where the council voted for this document. But it was placed in the budget book packet. Therefore, it was allowed to be in the budget. But we do not pass items in the budget. In our charter, there are specific rules and regulations as to what to do in order to have money released from the budget and under what condition. It was too late to try to do anything about finding the people involved who would dare to do such a thing. Now, the money was collected. It was spent. We just don't know why, because we never knew we were collecting it until years after the fact. Those were the same people who merged the city's stormwater management that was under public works, not a department that had the same workers as the public works department. But when they had stormwater issues, they called it stormwater management, and this is how you would deal with it. Then we come along and create a stormwater utility. Here we go again, the same time, same year. They needed more money. So they went and took the stormwater utility and made it a department for all stormwater problems and concerns that we were told over and over again when we was creating the stormwater utility not to include any of those in our ordinance. And we did not. We did not. In that ordinance where the merging occurred, it has in it the city manager word is final. What? Any fool would know. No city manager's word is final when you have a council. He or she does not make policy. Nor is he and she the arbiter of residents. He has no direct contact with residents except to resolve an issue. He doesn't make recommendations to them. He doesn't govern them. He is supervised by the council, and the council is supervised by the residents by their vote at the polls. And residents in East Point, you still have a choice. The election is not over until 7:00 p.m. November the 4th. If there are those you know who have not gone to the polls, You need to have a serious talk with them and ask yourself, how did in this city we come up with two ordinances, one that would create over $5 million per year by raising the electrical rates, by putting on this utility bill a power cost adjustment, a PCA, an environmental one, ECCR charges. And where is that money? That's $5 million the council did not know that was being collected above the regular reserve amount that was already accounted for in the rate. So here we come up with a reserve on a reserve. And with the growth in the city, that $5 million in reserve has increased. It increases with kilowatt hour usage. So what are we talking about? Well, even though I was a math teacher, let's do this the easy way. Instead of using the 11 years, let's use the 10. 10 times 5 million is 50 million. Now we go back with that other one. That's another 11 million. What happened to the 60-some million dollars we done got around here? Might be off a bit. And here we come with the stormwater utility. That was set up to generate $2.2 million a year. And that's going to remain stable because we would lose money if the city were to go out and see where buildings had been torn down, and that is just grassland, unless it had a concrete foundation, and that was still counted as impervious surface. Or, well, we once had grassland, no cement, and we have buildings there now. The amount of money would increase. So let's just say 50 million, and then another 2 million. That's $70 million in less than 11 years, because you won't pay for this year until you pay your property taxes before December 31st. What has happened to all of that money that council members had no idea, except for the stormwater money, that it existed, and that the stormwater money was supposed to be going to protect residential property, because most businesses, if they have a large enough space, then they have a detention pond that they have to keep up. East Point, wake up. We need leaders. I sat on the council with 8 other people who were as humane and as committed to this city as I was when it came to getting this legislation together. Where are they now? Where are they? I shouldn't be the only one speaking out. Their vote counted. I didn't vote, but I knew what is in it. And right now, the city council, the one that we have now, is at a crossroads. They have 2 decisions to make. They can repeal the ordinance because it's a fraud. It's fraudulent. You can't go merge something unknown to people, unknown to a council, and then they find out later, this is not what we voted for. They can repeal it. But if the city repeals it, there goes the funding. There is no utility fee because there is no stormwater utility. And homeowners no longer have the insurance that they had when the stormwater utility ordinance, original stormwater utility ordinance, was adopted. The second choice, they can amend it by having the council to go in and take out all the stormwater management language that was merged in with the stormwater utility language, and that which was created by the city that was not in the stormwater utility. We didn't say the resident pays 1/3 and the city 2/3. We have a resident now where a sinkhole has crossed her entire backyard. And this has been going on for 20 years. And the city has been telling her, and we don't talk enough to each other and support each other. And when you say, no, the city has to pay, and the city saying, I'm not going to pay because here's our ordinance. Unknown to those of us who know the truth, who knew the truth, and were approached about it, no one stood with me. It was elderly, legacy family, legacy homeowners who went out on those two protests with me for an ordinance that has been generating money for the city of East Point, and homeowners have been denied the service that they need to fix their problem. Hell no, it won't stand. No, 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 no. Now the city can still change that ordinance that the residents where they had their electric utilities increased without a hearing, without the council members' knowledge. Where the council members like that money coming in, that $5+ million a year for reserve over there. I know East Point revenue stream. I don't know East Point expenditure stream. And neither do most of the residents. And neither does the finance director, but we don't even have and can't keep one. And let alone the city manager. We are all at the mercy of the employees we hire. And that does not stigmatize those who do their jobs, but those who, for whatever reason, work with the city manager and some on council to do things that they know they should not be doing. They're wrong, and they should be called out on it. And they should be criminally charged if that's what it comes to. Like I said previously, the people involved are no longer with the city. It's the city manager, finance directors, those in the finance department, even down to the clerk's office and the clerk. They are the current ones are not to be stigmatized by what or who had those positions previously. And don't forget, it was during my administration at the end where we called in a forensic auditor. Because when I could not find $4 million on my records that coincided with what the finance department said was happening, I went to the federal attorney general, Sally Yates. And she told me, Mayor, you got plenty of smoke. What you lack is the fire. You need purchase orders. Because you're saying this $4 million was overspent for something it was not supposed to be done. If they can show that the money was spent for things that was actually done, then smoke goes away and the fire keeps burning. When I came back to the city looking for these purchase orders, we couldn't find them. So that's the late Councilmember Reed and Councilmember Cook, three of us. We couldn't find them. So we brought before the council the idea that, no, not the idea, we need a forensic audit to find out where our purchase orders are. We hired one out of Minnesota. He came to the city and he went through every item that existed in the city looking for purchase orders. His findings came to the following. From the year 2000 up to where we were in 2012, the city has spent over $200 million. The city has spent over $200 million without a single invoice. And the $4 million that I stated that the management firm that was overseeing our CIP Capital Improvement Program had been paid in excess of $4 million more than the $7 million that was in their contract. Well, we learned that that company had been paid a full year off the books. A full year off the books. And when I was mayor, we had a budget committee. We had a finance committee. And we were thorough with the information that we got from the city manager and the finance director. They just neglected to tell us that they were implementing policies that we had not passed. Money that was coming in, we had no idea about it or where it was going, because their records showed the money was spent. Therefore, that needs to be what we should have gone back to and stopped doing. Monthly reports from every department to the city manager to council members. And then you can start seeing. And you need to the city of East Point needs to separate the the budget committee and the finance committee. Number one, you never did home rule to combine them. I checked open records. There is no shortcuts. You have to be dedicated. And I own up to the fact that my name is on the sheet, the last page, and the last page of our documents do not state this attests to whatever the ordinance is about. It's just standard form. But the idea that they would try and get away with this twice, and you know why? Because everybody in the city of East Point that worked over there in the city of East Point and residents knew Pittman did not sign her name to anything she had not read. I never had a problem sending back a document that was 7,000 shy out of a $2 million expenditures. That I would go through them and send them back and say, where's the invoice for the 7,000? Out of $2 million, they said she's sitting up there complaining about 7,000. Get it? She not signing. A person name means something. If it is on the ballot, it should stand for something. Now, what I have to say is this. Go to the polls and vote. But you need to vote for people who will stand up and have your back, not just on voting day and prior to voting day telling you that, but you will see it after voting day in action. Now, this council has not voted to repeal or amend the ordinance, stormwater ordinance. It needs to be amended, not repealed, because then we have to go back and you're not going to lose these seats by voting again for something that you didn't hold true before. Look at the people that's running for office. How many of them are likely to work with the current council that would be left after they leave, after the election? Now, come Monday night, the motion that was made by Council Member Sharon Shropshire, that was seconded by Council Member Tremaine Mitchell, and three of them voted on it with Council Member Latonya Martin. The council needs to waive the required requirement of the administrative board to fix that property. They need to waive it because it is the city fault that he cannot appeal before them because it does not, the appeals board does not exist. And it is the last word of the council that was in this matter. And the council can only vote for him and not against him because they don't have appeals board. So they have waited a year. Come December, nothing has been done on his property. 11 years they have been up there. Some of them have been up there. And they have not created administrative board. That is what we were protesting because the ordinance was not being carried out. It is Halloween, and I hope your vote would not be that of a witch stirring in a cauldron, creating all kinds of problems. I hope with peace and joy that you will enjoy your Halloween weekend. Today, as I said, is my 58th wedding anniversary. I have been blessed with a partner. My 58th wedding anniversary. I have been blessed with a partner.